Tommy Smith, Sam Cooke, Anwar Ahmed, Christmas Adams, Frederick Douglass, the Dope Buster, Gil Scott, Al Sharpton, Muhammad Ali, Abel Muhammad, Ashari Shakur, Khadija Farah, Janetta Muhammad, Harriet Tubman, Ross Barack, Mr. Louis Farrakhan Muhammad, Malik Singh Prasad, Stevie Wonder, Toussaint Lane Overture, Willie McDowell, Jesse Jackson, Dr. Miles Monroe, Bob Marley, Jim Marquis, Hank Allen, Ethel Wicks, Louise Griffin, Vivian Smith, Doris Peacock, Shirley Young, Helen O'Brien, Grambling State University, Oakland High School, Hempstead High School, Clark College, Morehouse College, James State, Bennett College, Michael Jordan, the godfather of Paul James Brown, Albert L., the Black Untouchables, Joe Lewis, Gabriel Prosper, Bill Clinton, Don Coltrane, Spike Lee, Professor Rick of the last Asiatic disciples. It's a black face. You better.
We were stopped by New Jersey state troopers, and I mean, they were out of their minds. You know, my arms were in the air in a split second. They shot me with my arms in the air, then again in the back. I was left on the ground for what seemed like forever. They finally took me to a hospital where I was kept in community college from Monday to Friday. And I don't want to explain what went on in between. But you can imagine, it was torture.
Uhuru, everyone. Welcome to the National Convention of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We started about 4 minutes. My name is James Simpson. I'm a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and your MC for today. So if everyone could just start congregating into the center, who doesn't need to be at a table, and we'll start in 4 minutes. Thank you so much. Uhuru.
Because when you see those cops in your neighborhood, that's their imperialism. The police in your neighborhood is imperialism because they've invaded your community and they need to keep you under control. You see, the state, the white power acts every day. Like the only thing on white power's mind is keeping you oppressed and keeping you colonized. If that wasn't a sign that we could win a revolution, I don't know what is. Anytime you see my comrades in the Uhuru Movement make a video, let me expose ourselves to y'all. You know what we want the most? For you to join. I want members. I want people to join the movement, become revolutionary. That's my material interest as an African poor and working class African. I need a revolution. I need liberation. I need Africans to stop dying. I need kids to feel like they can walk to a park without getting shot because of colonialism. I need people to stop being poor. I need African people to stop starving every day in Africa. I need for 90% of the African population in the world to not live under $1 a day. That's what I need. And the only way I know how to stop that is a revolution. And the only way that we can have a revolution is to build a revolutionary party. Because the only way I can be better is by joining the revolutionary party. I believe in revolutionary principles. I become an African nationalist. I take myself out the center. I care more about the people than I care about myself, my family, my friends. Stop reaching out. But I have to expose myself. I expose my comrades. Okay, we ain't here for a buck. We want to destroy white power. We fighting for power. Keep it 100. Whoever has the power now, gotta go. Gotta go. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. Join the revolution and push forward the liberation of people. Take yourself out the center. Stop trying to be a celebrity. Stop trying to make your name big. Like, what does that matter? What does that matter? Beyonce is one of the biggest names we got out here of African women, and we still dying. That don't stop bullets from hitting these kids' chests. But a revolution, a hoodoo. I appreciate everyone. The African People's Socialist Party is the baddest revolutionary party on the planet and the fastest growing. Let's build for the entire nation.
Are we ready to do this? Uhuru! Uhuru, and welcome everyone to the Uhuru Solidarity Movement's National Convention 2017, White Solidarity with Black Power. My name is Jamie Simpson. I am a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and I'm honored to be your MC for the program of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement's National Convention 2017. If you didn't know already, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is the organization of white people formed by working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. Our job is to organize others like ourselves from within the white community to take a principled stand of unconditional solidarity with the struggle of African people in the U.S. and around the world to reclaim their resources, their land, their lives, their labor, their destinies, and to be a self-governing people once again. Our job, to put it simply, is to pay reparations to African people. We have had an incredible whirlwind year of explosive growth in this period of the re-emergence of the African liberation movement, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela has dubbed it, and the deepening crisis of the imperialist social and economic system on which we sit. And we have seen the birth of a genuinely mass culture of reparations to African people in the form of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. It's expanding all over the country, as represented today right here in this room. This weekend will be a truly profound reflection of this exponential growth. We are living in the time of the re-emergence of the African liberation movement, and as the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, we willingly embrace our historical task of reparations to African people. We are honored to have a chance to work under such an amazing organization as the African working class, as represented in the leadership in the form of this magnificent organization, the African People's Socialist Party. We'd like to begin by acknowledging and thanking our esteemed guests who are with us today in this room, beginning with the founder, the leader of the Uhuru Movement, and chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru! Chairman I'd also like to acknowledge Deputy Chair Yeshitela of the African People's Socialist Party. Uhuru. We'd like to acknowledge and thank all the members of the National Central Committee of the African People's Socialist Party. And I'd just like to acknowledge here in the room, we have Comrade Akile Anayi. Yes, she is the next city councilwoman for District 6 in St. Petersburg. Radical Solutions for Radical Science. And she is the coordinator of the 3 Drowned Black Girls campaign to win justice for Ashanti Butler, Lenani Miller, and Dominique Battle, all 3 of whom were drowned 1 year ago yesterday at the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. And I would be remiss if I didn't salute Comrade Kunde Wahita, the mother of Dominique Battle, African warrior for liberation, justice for all African people. Their deaths were not in vain, and we are honored to struggle alongside comrades like Kunde Wahita. I'd also like to acknowledge Comrade Akenge. She is the Chief of Staff for the Office of the Chairman, and Uhuru. Comrade Yeshitela, Administrative Assistant for the Office of Chairman of Yeshitela. And I'd like to acknowledge the one and only Penny Hess, Chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, author of Overturning the Culture of Violence. Uhuru. And if there's anyone I have forgotten, I apologize. I want to thank everyone who has helped make this convention of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement possible in any way. Everyone who's tuned in, everyone who's here today, thank you. We have an incredibly dynamic and powerful program lined up for you today. We'll be hearing from the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, as well as the leadership of the Solidarity Movement, featuring and having many great workshops to break down exactly how each and every one of us can play a huge role in this upcoming year in building white solidarity with Black power in your neighborhood, your city, your state, your campus. As we have seen time and time again in this period, there is one dedicated force in a given area that is an opening to build another front in the struggle for reparations and African liberation within the belly of the beast itself. This struggle is not a parallel struggle, but a strategy in the hands of the African People's Socialist Party, and it is their struggle for total emancipation and independence of their people. And as a white person in solidarity with Black power, we have an important, historical, and enormously liberating task, this work, reparations. So, before we get started today, I just have a few housekeeping announcements. If you could please turn your cell phones either off or to silent, that would be very helpful. Bathrooms are to my right, stage right, your left. We will be breaking for lunch, and that is in the northwest door, right back there. So, break for lunch there, to my right. At noon, just before noon. I want to give a shout out to the crew and to everyone watching online. Thank you for tuning in. I include you in the audience. And thank you all so much for being here today. We'll be seeing a bit more of you today. I'll keep that to a minimum as much as possible. And to start off with today, without much further ado, we have a very special video presentation that was produced by our really stellar filmmaker, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement member and APSC comrade, Kyle Vies. And it shows you the faces and the voices. It's titled, White Solidarity with Black Power, Uhuru.
As white people, we have always upheld the lie that America is the home of freedom and democracy. But the reality is very different.
Long before Trump and the cries of fascism, African people were catching hell.
There are over 2.5 million people in prison in the United States, over half of whom are Black or African people.
Every 18 hours, an African person is killed by the police or by white vigilantes.
The average white family has over 22 times the wealth of the average African family.
Something is wrong with this reality. Mexican people are detained, tortured, and murdered for crossing an illegitimate colonial border on their own land.
In the past year alone, the U.S. has dropped over 26,000 bombs on the Middle East.
And the indigenous people, whose life expectancy is 42 years, are forced to suffer in concentration camps called reservations on their own land.
I'm answering the call from the African Liberation Movement.
For white people to stand in solidarity with Black power.
And to say, we reject this system where the price of our children's security
is the suffering of millions of African, Mexican, Arab, and indigenous children around the world.
I don't want my child's future to require that drone strikes rain down on the children of Syria.
I refuse to be complacent with a system where my life as a disabled person,
As a transgender person,
as a white woman,
can only come at the expense of African and other oppressed peoples of the world.
I will not fight for my rights inside of a system built for white people on the backs of everybody else.
I'm a white person who stands in solidarity with Black power.
It's not enough for us to say Black lives matter.
If we don't support the struggle of African people for Black power over their own lives,
we must take responsibility for what we have done to African people.
We lynched,
we murdered,
we raped, we tortured African people
for hundreds of years
to establish our lives
and chase our dreams.
On the foundation of their oppression.
Because this is not our land. This is land we stole from indigenous peoples at gunpoint.
We committed genocide against them.
All of this land must go back to the indigenous people.
Capitalism was built on slavery and genocide.
We inherited the wealth of the slave master, and African people inherited the poverty of the enslaved.
Where every dream and aspiration rests upon
stolen lives,
stolen labor, stolen land,
stolen futures,
stolen dreams,
stolen ideas,
stolen culture,
stolen resources.
We owe reparations to African people.
All white people owe reparations to African people.
The white ruling class has always counted on us to carry out their will.
But we are here to say the legacy of the lynch mob stops with us.
We will not pass this legacy on to the next generation.
White solidarity with Black power represents a new beginning.
We will not do the bidding of the white ruling class anymore. We will not be their lynch mob.
We will not fight their wars.
We will not be their cannon fodder.
We will not be their drone operators. We will not be their cops.
And we will not stand by while the police murder African people in our name, or while the U.S. terrorizes the peoples of the world.
We don't care if they are Democrats or Republicans. They can no longer count on us to be complicit with their crimes against humanity.
It's bigger than showing up for a demonstration.
It's not about unlearning the racist ideas in our heads.
This is about white solidarity with Black power.
It's about solidarity with African self-determination.
This is about joining the rest of humanity.
Reparations to African people.
White solidarity with Black power.
we are under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party.
The movement of African people that is changing the world.
African people in the U.S. and around the world are one people.
We are united as one people to free our African nation.
To overturn the colonial oppression of African people.
We are taking back our land, our labor, and our resources.
To build our own liberated African economy.
And secure a future for our children.
We are coming for what's ours.
White people will no longer live at the expense of the people of the world.
Our only future is in solidarity with African liberation. Reparations now!
What an outstanding video. Let's give another round of applause. White solidarity, Black power, child peace, and everyone who's working in that video. Thank you so much. And just to go back to a bit of housekeeping, sorry to make it very quick. First of all, there's an Ultima, if I have that right. This outside, someone left their doors open. If anyone left their car with their doors open, you can attend to that. And I want to also put forward Comrade Temba and Comrade Alienza of the African People's Socialist Party who are here. Uhuru. And next, it is my honor to introduce the International Chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. He is a member of the National Central Committee of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and he is the next mayor of St. Petersburg, united through reparations to African people. Please welcome our fearless comrade, Jesse Neville, aka Jesse Nevelski. Uhuru! Reparations now! All right. I just saw a lot of you up there. Here you are. Beautiful. Uhuru. Thank you, Jamie Simpson, our MC and voice on Reparations in Action on Black Power 96.3 FM WBTU here in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I want to begin by acknowledging all of you for being here and the leadership of, as already been mentioned, the profound leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Yeshitela, and all of the leaders of the African People's Socialist Party. And I also want to join Jamie in acknowledging Chairwoman Penny Hess, who since 1976 has been a member and the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and proved to each and every one of us that it is possible for white people to take a principled stand, and who has functioned as living proof of the chairman's theory of African internationalism. And I also want to acknowledge someone who is a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee and the national membership coordinator of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, who could not be here with us for reasons beyond her control, but who wanted more than anything in the world to be with us in this room today, and who in many ways is with us in this room today, in the form of all of the members here whose lives have been transformed by her and by her leadership, and that person is Riot Bogus. So as was mentioned, my name is Jesse Nevel, and I'm the national chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and I'm also going to be the next mayor of this city, which I'll tell you about. We'll be talking about that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But first of all, I just want to say how happy I am to see all of you. And I don't really use that word very often. But I'm really happy to see all of you. And I'm really excited to have you all here in the headquarters, in the national office, in the city of African resistance, in the birthplace of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru Movement. To have each and every one of you here is historic and profound. And for those of you that I'm meeting today for the first time, we have just begun a lifelong relationship. And I do want to say something about the love that exists between comrades in this movement. And it is something that is indestructible, because it's not some sappy, whatever kind of thing. It's love that is born in the trenches. And the humanity that bursts forth from each and every person, from white people, who turn loose our whiteness and get on the right side of this glorious revolutionary struggle to rid the planet of oppression, injustice, and slavery, is overwhelming. To be on the side of freedom against slavery, on the side of humanity against the exploiters and oppressors of humanity, on the side of African people and the rest of the colonized peoples of the world against white power and against colonialism itself. There is no deeper connection between human beings than the connection that is based on a shared vision of the type of world we want to live in. It is deeper than blood. So I thank you for coming, for traveling from so many different cities to be here with us, and for finding the meaning of your existence in the struggle to repair the relationship that we have with Africa and African people.
Today we begin a new page in our history that starts with fighting to bring to a close, finally, the 6 bloody centuries of life we have taken for granted on the foundation of global daily oppression. It is a great honor to be the chair of this organization, and as the chair, my ultimate inspiration to fight and win is the presence of the people in this room. Because you are living proof that what Chairman Omali Yeshitela said is true, that in the process of struggling to transform the world, we ourselves become transformed. It has been and continues to be the greatest honor and joy of my life to struggle alongside you all and to be involved in this process of transforming the world and becoming transformed along with you. We are white solidarity with Black power. We are among us teachers, nurses, midwives, mothers, fathers, children, men, women, trans, non-binary, disabled, veterans, artists, musicians, poets, but most importantly, from every strata of white society. We are soldiers in the solidarity front of the people's war for reparations to Africa and African people everywhere. We are the children of the slave master, slamming the door of the slave master's house behind us and never looking back, taking up the call of the enslaved to do our part in killing the slave master and destroying the system of slavery. We are not the anti-racist movement, which keeps white people and our ideas in the center, and which puts the future of Africa and African people dependent on whether we can be one to unlearn our racist ideas. We are part of the anti-colonial movement, under the helm of the Black Revolution. In the anti-racist movement, you hear talk of reconciliation, and sometimes you hear this word healing, racial healing. But Frantz Fanon, who was a part of the Algerian Revolution and an African, brilliant African theorist, wrote that the only way for the colonized to be healed is to kill the colonizer. And I would add that the only way for the colonizer to be healed is to kill the colonizer, is to kill colonialism. Fanon also said that when the colonized kills the colonizer, both the colonized and the colonizer die, because that intimate but gruesome relationship that is the basis for both is destroyed. The African People's Socialist Party is based on the understanding that the future of every African person is tied to the future and success of the African Revolution. And for all of us, the citizens of the empire who make the decision to defect from our white ruling class, our future and our lives are also connected to the future of the African Revolution. Because when we take up our role as a strategic front of the African liberation movement and hold the sword of revolution in the air above us and cut loose our relationship to a violent, blood-sucking system, African people free themselves of their oppression, and we become freed of the isolation and inhumane horror of being one with this oppressive system. We become freed from the downward spiral towards utter doom and destruction that awaits this parasitic terror machine known as US imperialism. Che Guevara's famous quote comes to mind: "Solidarity is not a matter of well-wishing, it is a matter of sharing the same fate in victory or in death." We make that commitment, but we are confident that the fate of the African Revolution will not be in death. It will be victory, victory, victory. The African Revolution will win, and we, the settlers, the colonizers, have the opportunity to turn loose the riches of empire acquired through the forced starvation and rape of the planet, to build a new culture, to step into a new world, a new relationship between human beings, a new economy that is not built on slavery, but built on reparations to African people. The rumblings of a reparations cultural revolution can be heard in this room today. It begins with each and every one of us who declares loud and clear, no longer will we rest our children's heads on the pillow at night and sing them lullabies to sleep against a muted backdrop of the anguished screams of Iraqi, Syrian, and African children, cowering in their homes as US bombs blow their families to shreds and rip their lives and communities apart. No longer will we fuel our cars, our stomachs, and our pocketbooks with the oil and gold and riches achieved by gunfire and bombshell blasts. The struggle for reparations is our entry point into the human family. It is not a door that we casually enter. It is one that humbles us and demands of us that we face the truth about our history. It's not about guilt, although if you feel guilty, it's usually because you are guilty of doing something wrong. It's about taking responsibility for something you know is wrong and doing something to make it right. That's what we are called upon to do. That's what we want to do. It's what we have to do. Not follow our own self-serving and ultimately self-defeating aspirations on the pedestal of the subjugation of everybody else. We said in that video, and we say it without reluctance, this is the land of the indigenous people. This is not our land. This is not my land. It is not your land. It's not Woody Guthrie's land. This is the land of the native people. And when all of this is said and done, this land will be back in the hands of the indigenous people. The Uhuru Solidarity Movement is a mass organization. I'd like to just talk for a minute about what that means. You're going to hear that term a lot over the next couple of days. First, let's start with this. We are under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. The African People's Socialist Party is a revolutionary party. That means, first of all, a party is an organization that represents a particular class interest. Every political party represents a class interest. The Democratic Party represents the interests of a sector of the white ruling class. The Republican Party represents the interests of a sector of the white ruling class. And the African People's Socialist Party represents the interests of the African working class. It is a party guided by the conviction that nothing short of revolution will solve the problems imposed on African people inside the US and around the world. It is a party that is convinced that colonialism and capitalism are social and economic systems with no redeeming qualities, born from slavery and genocide. In 1976, the party founded the African People's Solidarity Committee as the way for white people to become revolutionaries under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. Our job was defined as material solidarity with the struggle for African self-determination, national liberation, and reparations. APSC created the Uhuru Solidarity Movement as a mass organization to meet white people at the door and bring us into revolutionary life under the leadership of the African Revolution. Not every white person who joins USM is necessarily signing up to become a revolutionary as such, but every white person who joins USM is doing work that contributes to a revolutionary strategy, because USM is a front of the strategy of the party. The means by which we carry out this mission is material solidarity, unleashing the stolen resources hoarded in the white world back into the hands of the African Revolution. As white people, we should never have to be asked by the party to turn over resources. It's our job, because it's our responsibility. There is not a dollar or cent or shilling or pence or whatever else in the white world that is not bloodied in the enslavement of Africa. Reparations must be paid, and all of us white people owe reparations and have a responsibility to pay reparations and to advance the struggle of the African Revolution to make the white ruling class pay reparations as well. Concretely, what does this mean? It means funding Black Star Industries. It means funding the emergence of a Black workers' economy. It means depriving parasitic capitalism of its power and resource base by liberating thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars back into the struggle for African revolution and socialism. It means raising money in the white community as fundraisers for African self-government and liberation. It means building a revolutionary culture of reparations to African people. Ultimately, this system cannot survive, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela has said. This system cannot survive a successful struggle for reparations carried out to its ultimate conclusion, because a free Africa and parasitic capitalism cannot coexist in the same universe. One has to die to give birth to the other. We have the opportunity now to make a break from our relationship to this system, to cast the heroin needles, opiates, and liquor bottles into the ash heap of history and look towards the future with the gleam of revolutionary optimism in our eyes. When we join white solidarity with Black power, our future is connected to the future of every African freedom fighter from Ferguson to Burkina Faso, waging the war for their liberation. When you read the news and you see people anywhere on the planet fighting for their freedom, fighting for their land, the Palestinians, the Iraqis, the Syrians, the Filipinos, the Koreans, you are connected to them now because of this relationship with African liberation. We are connected to their future, to their fight. Our future is linked with theirs. This past year was the dawn of a new era for the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We held 7 days in solidarity with African people in cities throughout the month of October, including in Huntsville, Alabama, in Seattle, Washington, in Boston, Massachusetts, in Gainesville, Florida, in St. Petersburg, Florida, in, Oakland, San Diego, and we also had viewing parties in many, many other cities as well. And that was, you'll hear a lot about that in the next 2 days, but that was a huge accomplishment, a huge turning point for the whole struggle to build white solidarity with Black power. We traveled to all of those cities with Chairwoman Penny Hess. In many of those places, Chairman Omali Yeshitela spoke, and all 7 of those cities, we had the great honor of touring with the courageous warrior for justice, Kunde Mwamvita, who spoke at all 7 of those events. We have been increasing our material solidarity to the African People's Socialist Party. We have no interest in staying in the same spot. This past year, we raised $30,000 to the work of the party and Black Star Industries. This year, we are increasing it to $50,000, and we want to use this convention as a springboard to a day in the near future when we look back at 50,000, like, really? You know, because we're raising hundreds of thousands and then millions of dollars in reparations to African people. This whole year, we were out there, all of our comrades here were out in the thick of all the resistance and demonstrations going on, especially after the election of Donald Trump, you know, going out there, bringing the analysis of the African People's Socialist Party to that question. We also saw the rise of a really dynamic and vibrant culture of reparations, which you'll be hearing about later today in the campaign called the Reparations Challenge. We fought in solidarity for justice for the 3 drowned Black girls. We were at a conference that was held about reparations from Harvard, and our comrades in Boston challenged the institution of Harvard and then held an event later that night. Under the incredible leadership of Raya Fogarty, we doubled our membership this past year. And as proud as I am of all of these accomplishments, we're really just getting started. And we don't plan to grow incrementally bit by bit. We are getting ready for an explosion. In fact, it's already begun with everyone here. This year, we will be building the Reparations Challenge to new heights. We want to have a situation where any minute of any day, somewhere in the world, there's a reparations challenge activity going on. Some white person somewhere is raising reparations at all times of every day and every night. We want to build the Days in Solidarity with African people in at least 8 cities, if not way more than that. I'm sure we can go way more than that with this convention that we have today. We want to continue to expand our membership by 200 members. We want to organize every sector of the white community into solidarity with African liberation. You'll be hearing about that today. And we will also be building support for 2 important electoral campaigns here in the city of St. Petersburg. So as I mentioned earlier, I am running for mayor of St. Pete, and the incredible Aretha Akile Kenyon is running for District 6 City Council, and we'll be doing a workshop on that this afternoon. Yes. Aretha Akile Kenyon is running to represent the interests of the Black working class and to fight to implement Black community control of police. Her platform calls for reparations, self-determination, and economic development in their own hands. And I'm running for mayor on the campaign platform of Unity Through Reparations, so that when Akile wins, she will have someone in the mayor's office who backs everything that she wants to make happen to unite this city around a progressive agenda that makes reparations the template by which anything progressive has to be measured. And we intend to win these elections. This is not some propaganda or whatever. We're gonna win. Our goal is to win. And the only way to win is to build everything we're gonna talk about over the next 2 days. Because we have to build a mass movement. We have to build a mass revolutionary movement. That's the only thing that will propel us to victory. And to make the reparations demand something that is of the people, of the masses, including of white people. And I'll be telling you about this later, but we've been going out with our information about this campaign, talking to white people in the neighborhood I used to live in about reparations. That's the #1 platform item. and they're very enthusiastic about it. So the potential is great to build the mass movement for white reparations to African people and to crush the status quo in this city and create real revolutionary change. And when we have that, our opponents do not even stand a chance. So I will close by just saying that the movement is already brewing. And this past year has been just something it's difficult to really put into words, because there were people who are here today who came to the convention. We met for the first time last year at the convention. And this year, you made the convention happen. You were the leaders of this movement who made this convention happen. And I am confident that that will happen again. Today, there will be people here for meeting for the first time who will quickly rise and become leaders in your own community and in this movement. And I want to close by acknowledging my dear, incredible comrades on the National Steering Committee of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And I want to start by acknowledging the National Outreach Coordinator, Comrade Johan Bedingfield. Uhuru. I could tell you all about Johan, but you already know. And you'll be hearing from Johan. He is really doing groundbreaking work as the outreach coordinator. And you will be hearing from him on tomorrow for a great workshop that Johan will be speaking on. I also want to acknowledge someone who also couldn't make it today, who for the last year has been the secretary of the National Steering Committee, which is Virginia Wilson. I'd like to acknowledge our international organizer, Jackson Hollingsworth. Another truly powerful person and organizer that you'll be hearing from throughout this convention is Mackey, who is the Economic Development and Reparations Chair. I want to salute our amazing Info Ed coordinator for this past year, who has been Renee Nassar. Uhuru. Our newly elected interim secretary for the past couple of months is a great comrade who you saw in that video, who also couldn't be here with us today, but is watching online, actually having a viewing party, and that's Connor Voss. All right, my time's up, but there's many more people I'd like to acknowledge. I want to acknowledge Hallie Murray, who has been the logistics coordinator and many other things, amazing organizer. Amanda Carlozzi, so many other comrades. I can't name everybody. All of you, everyone, has done such amazing work building this movement. And I want to thank the party, again, the veterans of the African People's Solidarity Committee, for whom I have such immense respect that I can't even tell you the love, the deep love and respect and admiration that I have for those who have stood the ground against all kinds of attacks, everything you can imagine under the sun. But these comrades, veterans, people like Janice Cant, Kitty Riley, comrades Sandy, Maureen, Ruby, Ali, amazing leaders and comrades of the African People's Solidarity Committee who have blazed the trail for the last 40 years. And I want to close by saying that the party is making history today, extending the struggle for African liberation into the white oppressor nation population, something that has never been done before. White solidarity with Black power is spreading like a virus that will kill white power from within. We are coming upon the day when we enter the mainstream of white society, and no white person will be able to go to work, to school, to the grocery store, to their gym, to their bar, their local restaurant, to their yoga studio without encountering one of us. Without encountering someone who's ready to take them with us into the future with the rest of humanity. The reparations cultural revolution begins now. Uhuru.
Wow, what a presentation. Jesse Nevelsky, USM chair and the next mayor of St. Petersburg. Uhuru. Thank you so much for that overview and report, Chair Jesse. And I have full confidence in your campaign this year and in this year of struggle. So just a couple of acknowledgements before we move on. I did want to acknowledge the African People's Socialist Party National Central Committee member, Attorney Aaron O'Neill. Really put him forward, who today, yes, along attorney for Kunde Mwavita, struggling for justice for the 3 drowned black girls, and of course, the leader of that campaign, Comrade Akile Anayi, also known as Aretha Canyon, the next District 6 City Councilwoman. Uhuru. All right, now we have next a highly anticipated musical performance, an anthem. This is an example of the culture, the revolutionary culture of reparations that's emerging. This is an anthem of the movement for white reparations to African people, performed for you live by our very own Uhuru Solidarity Movement comrade, Jackson Hollingsworth. Brace yourselves. This is going to be a full-fledged immersion in the rising culture of reparations. Uhuru.
We know that we've been lied to. There's 2 realities. There's the one that we've been raised in, and the one we pretend we don't see. We don't want the guilt, but our lives are built on murder, rape, and theft. To pretend is not an option now. We wonder why is left. You have the ability to liberate yourselves from this relationship with the right ruling class. You have to fight for black power, because it is white power that is responsible for every contradiction that people face on the earth. It is white power that is responsible for the oppression of white women. It is white power that is responsible for the oppression of white homosexuals. It is white power that is responsible for the oppression of white racists. It is white power that is responsible for the oppression of the vast majority of people in the world. Everybody else united against white power. The responsibility of Europe and you to join, struggle, join through solidarity. Reparations, now!
Wow, that was awesome. Let's have another round of applause for Jackson Hollingsworth. I'd like to also acknowledge comrade of the African People's Socialist Party, member Dia Kiese, from station manager for Black Power 96.3 FM, airing right here in St. Petersburg. Not just explaining the world, but changing the world. All right. So, wow, that was an incredible example of the culture of reparations. Really brilliant song. It gets better every year. And next, it is my honor to bring to the podium the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee. For more than 40 years, Penny Hess has led the African People's Solidarity Committee, working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, organizing white people under the leadership of the party for reparations to African people, leading by example on how white people can and must rectify the past and present reality of white terror against African people. She embodies unity with a positive future for all humanity without slave masters and enslaved. Chairwoman Penny has spoken throughout the world, educating white people on the truth about our history and what we must do to repair the damage done and join the rest of humanity by adopting the worldview of the African working class as our own. She is the author of the book, Overturning the Culture of Violence. Please welcome to the podium our very own chairwoman, Penny Hess.
Uhuru! Uhuru! White solidarity with Black power! Reparations now! Uhuru, comrades! Uhuru, this is so moving. This is really powerful to be here today. And I want to welcome all of you comrades under the leadership of the African Revolution who have taken your stand on the forward side of history under the leadership of the African Revolution. And I want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, under whose leadership I've had the honor of working for more than 40 years, who has never stopped fighting. I want to salute Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshitela and all the leaders and members of the African People's Socialist Party here and around the world. I want to salute Kunde Mwambita and Eritha Akile Canyon, who is running for City Council, who will be our next District 6 City Councilwoman. And I want to salute you for the work, for justice, for the 3 drowned African girls. Yesterday was the year anniversary. There was a powerful press conference talking about the wrongful death suit, the intent to sue, to build and win reparations for the murder by the Pinellas County Sheriffs of Lanaya Miller, Ashanti Butler, and Dominique Battle. And we salute you, we salute Kunde Mwambita, and we will win. African people are winning. And I want to salute the candidates that are running, again, Eritha Akile Canyon running for District 6, who will be the next District 6 City Councilwoman, and our mayor, Jesse Neville, who will be the mayor of St. Petersburg based on unity through reparations. Uhuru. We have all, the party has built all of these fronts of the African liberation movement. We have Black Power 96.3 FM, an incredible force for the African Revolution. We have Black Star Industries. We have Uhuru Furniture, Uhuru Foods, Uhuru Furniture in 2 cities in Oakland and Philadelphia. Uhuru Foods here and in Oakland. So many fronts. The African Socialist International, the party is in London, in Stockholm, in other cities throughout Europe. It's in occupied Azania or South Africa. It's in Sierra Leone. It's in Kenya. It's throughout the world. It's in the Bahamas. It's building, it's uniting African people as one people around the world. And we are here as part of the chairman and the African People's Socialist Party's strategy for there to be white face of Black power, to be inside the belly of the beast, to take up this struggle. And we are here, we are carrying out this strategy. Every place that white power looks, there's the Uhuru Movement. I love, by the way, the transparency of this movement, because there are many places and websites that have events, have different kinds of fronts, but they never tell you who coordinated that. You know, even you look at the Women's March, that big thing, well, who coordinated that? It doesn't even say. You know, we're going to an event on Tuesday night. Who coordinated that? But this, the African People's Socialist Party, is completely transparent. In every issue of the Burning Spear newspaper is its strategy, its platform, and all the work that it carries out and all the fronts all throughout the United States and the world for the struggling for the liberation of African people. So you have answered the call for white people to join humanity under the African Revolution and in unity with the struggle for African liberation and revolutionary movements around the world. You have answered the call for reparations to African people, and we have some amazing, amazing leaders here today. But we are here, comrades, because Chairman Omali Yeshitela continued to struggle and built the African People's Socialist Party. What would have been a victory for imperialism, the counterinsurgency, the war against the Black Power movement of the 1960s, was a defeat for US imperialism, because Chairman Omali Yeshitela continued the struggle throughout that war in a period when the leaders of the Black Power movement had been assassinated, when many of the leaders had been imprisoned, when FBI agents and other undercover covert organizations of the US government infiltrated the revolutionary movement, which had a huge percentage of the African population inside the United States in unity with it in the 1960s, a movement that shook this system to its very foundation, even by the words of white power itself when it created COINTELPRO. And that despite the hideous war against this movement, which demoralized a whole people, which crushed ideas that were held by even the bourgeois media in this country, that African people are the leaders, African people have a right to be free and independent, and that Black power was on the cover of Time magazine and Look magazine and every other outlet of US media, that had been crushed. And in its wake, the US government pushed crack cocaine and other deadly drugs into the African communities, criminalized the African population that had struggled for hundreds of years to be free, that everybody knew around the world was the moral high ground of all struggle, the bar for all struggle, that was crushed and criminalized, drugs pushed into the community, creating a drug economy that replaced the whole African community economy that was wiped out through this period and continues to be through what is called gentrification of the African communities here and around the country. And that the chairman was the only one who was out there as neocolonialism was raised up, as the genuine leaders of the revolutionary movement of that period were crushed, and in its place, leaders who carried out the will of white power and all of the discussion of the right of African people for self-determination, the right of African people to be liberated as one people around the world. This government did everything that they could to wipe it out. And they used the white left and white people to escape the counterinsurgency by going out into the woods or building up the white left, which couldn't exist during the time when the Black Power movement and the African Revolution was what set the terms on the ground here inside of the United States. But the chairman continued to struggle alone, the only voice against this. And I know that all over the world, people who have struggled, who have had revolutionary movements, have faced vicious counterinsurgencies by the US government. In the Chinese Revolution, the Chinese Communist Party was nearly destroyed in the 1920s when the neo-colonialist and darling of the US government, Chiang Kai-shek, and his forces murdered in what was called the Rape of Nanjing and Shanghai, murdered 300,000 of the leading revolutionaries, the leaders of the Communist Party in China. And I know that during the Vietnam Revolution, even as they fought against the US government launched what was called the Phoenix Program, murdering 40,000 of the leaders of the Communist Party of Vietnam, the Workers' Party, doing hideous things to them, torturing them, pulling their fingernails out and dropping them from helicopters into the front yard of their parents' or their families' homes. But no revolution, no revolutionary leader has had to go through a period of almost 50 years of struggling against a defeated revolution. In China, after the murder of 300,000 leaders, they were able to rebuild within 10 years because revolution was the mainstream, the main theme in the world. But the US had crushed revolutionary struggles here and around the world. The people were demoralized, they were impoverished, African people were being rounded up and sent to prison, and police forces militarized police forces were set into the African community, murdering, as we know, an African person a day in this country. And it was Chairman Omali Yeshitela who took on that struggle and is responsible for the leadership that has brought about this period that we see today, the period of resistance that he has ushered in, that he has analyzed, that he has always known would rise up again. And I want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And the chairman solved the problems of the revolution. And one of them was, what about the white people? What do African people do with these white people? And the chairman always, he always understood that, as he used to say, we don't want to fight a race war. We want to win as many people as we can, to fight on the side of African people against the US ruling class, against the US state and the US government, against imperialism itself. And the chairman understood why white people had to be under the leadership of the African Revolution, because left to our own, we have never, ever, ever stood up in genuine solidarity with the leadership of any African movement that's been there. We've always used it, as we use the struggle of Africans against enslavement to build the white women's movement, or any of a number of other things. We never stood up as white people against the terror that was called lynching, or in genuine solidarity with African people. As soon as in the 1960s, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee called on white people to go back to the white community, to organize others like ourselves, to stand in solidarity with the Black Power movement of that time, we left. We didn't do that. We suddenly found the war in Vietnam. We suddenly found the anti-war movement, and the whole struggle of African people was left to its own. We abandoned it. And so it was very clear, because the system is built on the enslavement of African people, on the theft of the land of the indigenous people, that white people have to be under the leadership of the African Revolution, that we all sit on a pedestal of the oppression of African people, and that our interests are always at the center there. Our view as the subjects of history. Because, as the chairman says, it is not a question of racism, it is a question of colonialism. It is the struggle against the state power that African people here are colonized within the borders of the United States. And their struggle as one people, wherever African people are, on the continent of Africa, in the Caribbean, in Brazil, all throughout Europe, that African people are struggling against colonialism and for national liberation. So that educates African people everywhere about what the struggle is, not racism. Racism perpetuates, as the chairman says, the system. The struggle against racism perpetuates what people are struggling against when they call racism, because it upholds imperialism, it upholds white power. It says all we have to do is have white people take some classes and unlearn thoughts in our head. But somehow, the impoverishment of African people doesn't change. Somehow, the mass imprisonment of African people by the state and with complicity of the majority of the white population doesn't change. And the murders every single day by the police or by regular white people of African people doesn't change with the changed thoughts in white people's heads. And so really what we have is a huge, I don't know how much it's worth. I would say it's a multi-million-dollar industry of unlearning racism, of diversity training, or sensitivity, or whatever you want to call it, that doesn't change anything but people's pocketbooks who make a living going around talking about it. This is about something very concrete. Because if we try to unlearn racism, we don't know when we can ever be, we don't know when we get over that. But the struggle against colonialism is clear. It's clear for the colonized, and it is clear for us, that our job is to go inside the oppressor nation and organize others away from solidarity with imperialism, with white power. So when I look here and I see, you know, I just really want to salute, by the way, Jesse, that was an amazing presentation that you made. I really admired that. And I see, as has been mentioned, I see white women, I see veterans, I see the disabled, I see transgender persons, I see lesbian and gays, I see white men, I see students, workers, teachers, seniors, Jews, Irish, Italian, people organizing in their church, people in music and song and dance and so many other things, writers, people from all over, I think, what, 21 cities are here? From all, this is a cross-section of white people right here in this room. This is a microcosm of all of the millions of white people that we have to win. This is everything we need. And I look at, you know, how this organizing, what it means. I look at Comrade Johan. I see that he is organizing the wheelchair brigade, the disabled, I hate that word, the wheelchair brigade, fierce fighters for reparations to African people, not just for accessible bathrooms, not just for sidewalks, but for the end of a whole society in which there are throwaway people. A society like that can only be built on slavery and genocide. And that Comrade Johan has the integrity, has the unity with this movement to say that white disabled people owe reparations. That because this is our liberation. This is our way that we end this horrible relationship to white power. That it must end. And I see Comrade Bobby, a veteran, who is organizing other veterans, saying they must be here, that the ruling class doesn't send their children to these wars, and that they make white people, even white people, do things to others that are horrible, horrible, murder, slaughter, bombing, and that, you know, white veterans come back with PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. We need you, we want you. It's the ones who don't have PTSD that we would worry about. We want you, we need to be here. I see Comrade Halley organizing former anarchists, or as a former anarchist, organizing others against that and what it means, because yeah, we hate the state. We hate the state, but African workers are going to be free. They're going to have a workers' state, and they have a right to defend it, and we stand in solidarity with that. We see teachers like Comrade Zoe, who's trying to organize other teachers not to be an arm of the police in the schools, in the public schools, and to recognize what the struggles are there. Who had a great event a couple of months ago. We say Uhuru to that. We see white women, lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, not fighting to join the military or the police, but for reparations to African people and standing up for the African Revolution. I see a chorus of people saying white solidarity with Black power. The oppressor nation committing national suicide, turning loose our whiteness and joining in solidarity with African people and the rest of the people in the world. All around this country, middle-aged, well, not just, actually all ages of white people are dying or committing suicide or overdosing on drugs, are becoming addicted to alcohol, dying of alcoholism. You need to commit class suicide, not real suicide. Commit suicide with your relationship with white power. We need you. We need you. We can say that it could be that a lot of the people who don't see a future, they don't see a future of imperialism. This is where the future is. This movement under the leadership of the African Revolution, because the African Revolution is winning and it has a place for us as white people. All the people whose only life is Facebook, they call it deaths of despair. Deaths of despair. We do not need to do that. They must be here. We need you. There is no future in a system built on slavery and genocide. And that's why we say we won't be your lynch mob. We won't be your drone operators. We won't be your cops. We won't be your gentrifiers. We won't be your crime watch. We won't be your prison guards. We won't be your complacent, complicit, white minions that we break with our unity. That we say genuine solidarity. That yes, this land is the indigenous people's land. And our task is to pave the way, is to win thousands and thousands of white people of all ages to see the world as it really is, not as we fancy it to be. To break our alliance with the ruling class of white power and join humanity through solidarity with the liberation of African people. And imperialism is in a crisis, as the chairman tells us, due to the resistance of African oppressed peoples around the world. And the chairman tells us that capitalism is parasitic. It was born parasitic. There was never a benign existence of capitalism. There was no friendly beginning. There were no good old days. It was born on genocide. It was born on rape. It was born on stealing people's land, their brilliance, their freedom, their self-determination. And that capitalism, parasitic capitalism, came about, as the chairman tells us, because of incredible, unimaginable violence that ripped apart the majority of the world. That it was this that was the startup money that built capitalism from the beginning. And primitive accumulation, as the chairman said, is the startup capital, is the first capital. The first accumulation of capital meant that hundreds of millions of people around the world were assaulted, that things that we as white people did to them, they had no words for, they had no concept for, that everything they ever knew or loved or experienced in life for millennia was destroyed. That a once free and independent people lost their culture, lost their communities, lost their children, their ability to produce and reproduce life. They lost their self-determination and were forced into dependency under this vicious worldwide system called white power. It began with the onslaught of Africa, the key and the foundation of the capitalist accumulation, turning Africa into a warren for the hunting of African people, raiding, conquering, and pillaging human beings, and turning them into property, into commodities, into objects of history. Wanton slaughter. We have to tell this story. This is not on Africans to tell this story. We have to tell it. We have to tell what we did. We have to take responsibility for it. We have to say it ends here, as it says in that video. You know, a lot of books are coming out now that appropriate the theory of African internationalism, and it gives academics a place to have a career that talks about or correlates the oppression and enslavement of African people and the wealth that was generated either for universities or for the US economy or the world economy. But it doesn't call on you to do anything. And so many books, whether they're summing up what's called the lynchings, whether they're summing up the half has never been told, whether they're summing up how the incredible forced and violent productivity of African people created so much wealth that there's never been an explosion of wealth such as that in the world. But that these books, it's some vague thing that white people did. It's vague, and it always has some apology for white people. And if you look at the books about the lynching, it says things like, well, it was a dark era of US history, or white people were facing a bad economy, or that white people were duped. Somehow we were duped to see that African people, we saw them as our enemy. This is ridiculous. I mean, the indigenous people were not duped. They welcomed African people in. There was that unity there, that it's really clear that this was part of the white nation, us as the white nation, acting as the state, because nobody was ever indicted for what is called a lynching against African people in this country. It was sanctioned, it was state-sanctioned, and we carried it out. So it means that we subjugated, we tortured, we raped, we mutilated, we had incredible creativity for what we did to torture, murder, and slaughter African people and the people around the world. We have to say that, because they say that today doctors or scientists finally realized that what happened to African people is passed down in their DNA. Well, the violence is passed down in ours. The violence that was carried out was passed down in ours. That we chopped off the hands of the children by millions in Africa. We lynched, we burned, we scraped the scalps, the hair and the skin from indigenous human beings and made coats out of it. The chairman says, capitalism was born in disrepute. It was born of the rapes, massacres, occupations, genocide, colonialism, and every despicable act humans are capable of inflicting. So every tree-lined street, every job in Silicon Valley, every smartphone, every great painting, every work of art, every musical accomplishment rests on this pedestal of this vicious murder, this slaughter, this terror that we as white people have carried out against Africans and against the people on the planet Earth, the whole Earth, the whole world. So no books have to say what we have to say. We have to tell this truth. We have to win other white people because, you know, it explains it. It explains, this is what's wrong. This is what's bothering me. This is why I can't live, because I can't say this. We're not supposed to talk about this. It's always the elephant in the room. It's never there. There's supposedly free speech not to talk about this, not in common everyday life. It's this movement. It is the responsibility of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and African People Solidarity Committee to bring this message to white people, because once we acknowledge it, and we acknowledge it under the leadership of the African working class, we have a way out, a way to rectify, a way to take responsibility by making a self-criticism, and that self-criticism is reparations to African people, because this is what it took to have the lifestyle and still takes, and the opportunities and everything else that we pass down from generation to generation. White people climbed up the ladder of success by jumping on any ship out of feudal Europe, going to Africa, to the Americas, to any part of the globe with the willingness to rape, murder, and terrorize. And we, as white women, have played a completely complicit role in this. We have been leaders in this. Ida B. Wells led a struggle against lynchings, and she targeted white women, because white women always accused, all we had to do was say, African man raped me, and he would die. And he would die in a public spectacle, either burned to death, hanged from a tree. And we were there. We were there gathering the firewood, egging on the white men. We participated in this. Here in St. Petersburg, when an African man, John Evans, was lynched, it was a white woman who drove by in her car and whipped out her gun and shot him as he was being hoisted up. So we've had equal rights. We've had equal rights with white men in oppressing African people. You know, and the whole struggle, we still live in a society that is very oppressive to women, to white women, but we accept it historically as long as we could have the rights to share in the wealth and in the power and in the rights of life and death against African people with white men. So I just want to end up by saying that when we are feeling entrapped in being the subjects of history, when we can only see ourselves, when we join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, we join the world. Our relationship under the leadership of the African Revolution gives us the ability to have a principled and genuine stance of solidarity with all other peoples struggling around the world. It takes away what the chairman calls our self-imposed isolation. It takes away our separation from humanity and our fanaticism with our own stomach and pocketbooks. And when we take this stand, when we're part of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, we are fighting for reparations to African people, then we stand with Kunde Mwamvita and all African parents who have lost their children. We stand with all the Africans who are languishing in the prisons and the concentration camps called prisons inside this country. We stand with all those African people on the move, forced to jump on rickety boats into the Mediterranean, probably lose their life, trying to chase their stolen resources in Europe. And we stand with indigenous people whose land this is, forced into concentration camps called reservations, and to the people of Venezuela, who have lost an average of 20 pounds each because of the sanctions and the economic policies that the US government has imposed on them. We stand with the people of Aleppo, who have been pounded by US drones and bombs for 7 years. We stand with the people of Mosul, who the US just killed 1,000 civilians in the past period of time. We stand with the people of Iraq overall, and with the people of Afghanistan, with the Palestinian people, with all the oppressed and colonized people under the leadership of the African Revolution. And for the first time, we can truly stand for the meaning of Che Guevara's statement that genuine solidarity is not well-wishing, but in sharing the same fate, whether in victory or death. Uhuru, reparations now. We will not be your lynch mob. Uhuru!
Penny Hess. All right. Thank you so much, Penny Hess. That was amazing. Next, it is my honor and privilege to invite to the podium our keynote speaker for today, a revolutionary leader without whose vision and theoretical worldview and strategy to win revolution in his lifetime, none of us would be here today. The founder and leader of the Uhuru Movement, who provides leadership for the entire world revolutionary struggle. He's the author of many groundbreaking works of revolutionary theory and analysis, including An Uneasy Equilibrium, The African Revolution versus Parasitic Capitalism. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our leadership, the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, Omali, Yeshitela. Uhuru. Uhuru. Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrades. I'd like to, first of all, extend appreciation and greetings to you from the Central Committee of the African Socialist International, the African People's Socialist Party, as we exist in the various places around the globe. I'd like to say that I think this is an incredibly significant conference that we're having. Also, to comrades Penny Hess, with whom I have worked for, I don't know, a long time, more than 40 years, and who I believe to be one of the most principled political persons I've ever known in my life. And to the leadership, Central Committee of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and to Comrade Jesse Neville, and the leadership of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. I would like to express my appreciation and thank you for being here. And I'd like to welcome all of you who've come here from the various 21 cities. And I don't know if we included St. Petersburg in those cities or not, but I'd like to welcome you. And thank you so much for coming here on today. I don't have to tell you that we have entered into an incredibly important moment in history. Some of it is obvious. When we see what is happening around the world and peoples everywhere doing everything they can to break free from US imperialism. When we see the economic and political crises that are gripping all of Europe, some more obviously than other places, and that grip here in the United States as well. We see the symptom of that crisis represented in the selection of Donald Trump, which from the perspective of the bourgeoisie was a horrible mistake that they are doing everything they can to rectify. Crisis is obviously abound and fundamental changes are affecting us. It's not that something is happening in one place. It's not like fighting in Vietnam. It's not like fighting against the people in Cuba. It's everywhere. Everywhere in the world, this crisis of a social system is creating chaos. And it is a part of a tremendous change, watershed change in history and the world. And this meeting on today is a component of this powerful transformation in world history. You are a part of this, and I'm very happy to be able to be here today, and I want to say just a couple of things about that. Because I've been a part of this struggle for a long time, and I came into the struggle at a time when there was a general acceptance of the status quo, with the assumption that it just needed to be tweaked a bit, so that African people or Black people or Negroes or coloreds or some of the other things that we were called at the time could be accommodated. This was the basic struggle that we were looking at the time. And the best friends of the African community were supposed to be those who simply wished it were possible for Black people, African people, to have a better relationship to white people in this system. That was the profound contradiction as we understood it mostly during the time that I came into this movement. I came into this movement questioning some of this. I went to school in this city, and one of the first significant political arguments I was involved in was in my senior year in high school, where I was supposed to have been in some kind of advanced class, which is silly for a number of reasons. And I'm lucky to have only gone in my childhood to Black schools. I'm lucky never to have been sent into that mind grinder, so-called integrated process that just wastes and murders and brutalizes so many children. But this professor of mine, this teacher, extraordinary erudite man, who even seemed out of place in a small town like St. Petersburg, made the statement that in order for Black people to be free, that we had to prove ourselves to white people. And I found something very disturbing about that point of view. And this would have been in 1958, 57, 58. And I tried to debate this issue with the professor, but he controlled the microphone. And also, he was so much better read, and he was an erudite guy. And I lost that debate, but it's obviously never left my consciousness. I thought it was a serious struggle. I saw it was such a humiliating statement to make, that Black people, my people, African people could not be free without proving ourselves to white people. Who are these entities out there that have to get evidence from me of my right to be free? What an extraordinary statement that was for me. So I was troubled with the political situation that I came into. I was troubled even with the concept, when I first heard it, of this thing that they call racism. I've always been troubled by it. I don't understand it. I didn't understand it then, when they talked about race. And then there's this thing called it as an ism that's associated with it, that is responsible for my relationship to the world. I found it extraordinary. Didn't have an understanding explanation for it, but there was something wrong and something very, very weak from that explanation. But here we are today, 2017, and certainly in a different place than we were in when the Solidarity Movement was first organized. When Comrade Penny Hess first came into this process, first in Louisville, Kentucky, when I first met her, and then when we organized the African People's Solidarity Committee in this city, by the way, later on. Big changes. Change because, first of all, here's what we understand. We're not in a movement that's based on just simple sentiments, just based on romantic notions. We love romance, but we don't base our worldview and everything we do on romance. If we did, most of the people here wouldn't be here. They'd be someplace else right now, being romantic. But to search for science, something that could help to explain this to me, so that it would be true, independent of my thoughts about it, independent of your thoughts about it. I am who I am, independent of what you think about me. What you think about me is not what defines who I am. What I think about you, what I think about the world is not what defines it. There's a material basis for everything that exists in the world today, and we had to discover this. And it begins to make sense once you look for the material basis, once you able to understand that the world is not something that simply is conceived in the mind of some person and then that informs everybody how we should go out and act. But there's a material basis for our relationship. There's a material basis for how we act in the world. And to discover this was incredibly important, and it is liberating as well. And this is the thing that is important for where we are today. Right now, having this discussion, because we are involved in a major fundamental transformation in the thought process of the majority of the people in this country and in the world, because we are materialists, as opposed to being idealists. So one thing we've come to understand is that the world, human society itself, is based on an economic base. There's an economic base for human society, economic base, how human beings go about creating what it is that we need to sustain ourselves, to feed, clothe, and house ourselves. This economic base exists in all society. And if you want to know something about a society, discover what it is that that society has to do in order to feed and clothe and house itself, to take care of itself. And then you begin to understand the ideas of that society. It's upon this basis, this economic base, that there develops a so-called superstructure. And the superstructure is that which informs the culture, that which all of the political institutions are built on this superstructure. Even churches, religions, and things like that are formed by this superstructure. And we live in a world where the economic base is slavery and colonialism. You can't get around it. The entire world that we live in, the entire world economy is informed by slavery and colonialism, an economic base that rests on that. And every idea, therefore, as long as this economic basis is there and is able to function appropriately, the ideas in that society will reflect that relationship. That's what people call racism. It is, how can people think otherwise? And this is deep. It's very, very important, because what we are talking about is, when we talk about the economic base of a society, we're talking about the foundation of all the aspirations of the people in that society. How am I going to feed, clothe, and house myself? Where's my children going to go to school? Whether they go to school or not. Every good dream, every aspiration, can I take a vacation? People talk about how we get $15 per hour, etc. Where does it come from? I mean, the question becomes, the reality is that every aspiration, every idea that we have is informed by this economic base. And so what we're talking about today has to be disturbing to some people. A lot of people it's been disturbing to. It's been difficult for a lot of people to even approach some of the questions that we are talking about now, because to do so challenges the security that they've known and that their grandparents knew as well. And as far back as they can remember, this security in all the traditions that's been formed by are now being challenged. to accept what Jesse Neville just said, to unite with unity through reparations, to go out into the white world and say that everything that we've got was stolen, looted. It's challenged because on this economic base, all kinds of fantasies have been constructed. Can't say that everything we got was looted and stolen and it came from rape and pillage. Say that we're the smartest. We're the brightest. That's how we got it. And they didn't deserve it anyway, or they would have kept it. We couldn't have taken it if there was any value to them. And then create these incredible fantasies. And these become fantasies that we feed our children. The generations grow up with this. But now, what has begun to happen over a period of time, the crisis of imperialism has become generalized. And it is reflected in the political reality that most of the people that confront economic and political reality. I mean, look at Greece. People are complaining that the European Central Bank are treating us like we are a third world country. Well, how dare they? This is not what's supposed to happen to white people. You can't talk to us like this. Who you think I am? Saddam Hussein? Right? Look at Greece. We're seeing all of our notions now being fractured. Everything we've been taught about right and wrong being under assault. Because these ideas, again, that had their birth in a system of slavery and colonialism. And now the crisis is deep everywhere. Greece is an example, but every place else you look, the crisis is deep. And what we see is a transformation in the economic foundation, the economic base of the society. And because of that, we see also being challenged, shattered, the ideas of a society finally being questioned, and it's possible to question them. So in an election that was just held in this country today, where people are crying about Hillary the butcher, Hillary the criminal, because she didn't get elected, the Democratic Party lost an election to this smug orange guy. You know, the question is that this crisis is here. You just had an election, and people are really concerned about the election. Even today, people who we've called revolutionaries and what have you are simply trying to undo the Trump victory. That's what they're about, undoing the Trump victory. That's what every bourgeois media that you see is involved in, trying to undermine and make it impossible for Trump to govern, to carry out whatever his view is, because it is not a view that had been consolidated by the ruling class proper, who had treated him as a joke in the beginning. So what they're about is fixing that. So-called leftists are about that. The Women's March was about that. The sham thing that Al Sharpton tried to do on January 14th was about that, to fix it. And you fix it by making it impossible for Trump to carry out his agenda, so that the Democratic Party or Hillary or Obama's agenda can be carried out. But Obama's agenda and Clinton's agenda was an imperialist, colonialist agenda that would keep the masses of the people of the world living in terror and poverty forever. So, an election that just happened in this country, where the two ruling class candidates had the lowest polling in history. They polled lower, higher negatives than any time in history. Clinton and Trump, each polling near 60% negatively. That's profound. In a situation where people had concluded that the only legitimate way to get political power or to influence policy in this country was through the electoral process, 60% or so thought that Clinton and Trump were both, each of them. were not worth voting for, or they were opposed to them. And then you have an election where 100 million people didn't participate in a system where it is assumed that elections are the viable way, the only legitimate way by which persons can pursue power or influence policies. 100 million people don't vote, they say. And then Trump is elected with the lowest percentage, perhaps historically, and now has been in office with 37% to 40% approval rating. That's a hell of a political situation to be in. And it means that instead of running to try to simply change things for the Democratic Party, we have a responsibility to understand that something profound is happening in this country with the vast majority of the people, that there are millions of people who hate the Democrats, who hate the Republicans, who want something else, and we are the only ones who have the answers about how we can get to the right place on this question. So we have leftists from the Green Party, we have leftists from this and that, we have anarchists and everybody who are out there not understanding the fundamental contradictions that we are confronted with, but we do. But we have to move boldly, and we have to have the courage to be able to take this understanding out to the world, and this is where we are. This is why I'm so glad to see you here right now. This is why Comrade Penny Hess is so glad to see you here right now, because it's a new generation of white people who have entered into the fray. And not just entered into the fray, but when we started this Uhuru solidarity, when we started the solidarity movement, you should have heard the flack that we got from the white leftists who said that you can't do this. First of all, they said that what this was white lesbians working under black men's leadership or something like that. And then they said things like, this is from the radical communists now who are saying that you can't do this because white people won't work against their own interests. So this is presumptuous as hell from a communist, so-called communist, who makes the assumption that it is in the interest of white people to live at the expense of everybody else on earth. They're not saying that I won't willingly participate in America because it's against my interests, but they say you won't work under the leadership of Black Power because it's going somehow against your interests. Black Power never did anything to you. Never, 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 never. And so it's a different period, and you are here. And you're here with your energy, and you're here with your talents, your skills, your enthusiasm, your desire to change the world, to set everything right. You're here, and I'm glad to see you here. I think it's really important. Because this is a discussion that we have to take out. When we first organized the African People's Solidarity Committee, we were these weird people that sort of over there, many people had to deal with us because we were weird. And there were these other leftists who were out there who proclaimed to have all the answers. But we've seen the world change so much. And all the leftists have fallen by the wayside. And as the crisis of imperialism deepens, we see their crisis deepens too, which leads one to believe that they had a really interesting kind of relationship with imperialism, even if it was hidden, right? And now what is growing is this movement that we're involved in now that's providing science and real answers to the contradictions that people of the world are faced with. Someone mentioned Comrade Kunde Mwamvita, and she is very dear to me because she is straight from the African working class. A young African woman, single woman, 5 children she had. And the government murdered one of those children. And the government murders our children every day, all the time. And some of them in more obvious ways than others. But something else happens in our community. There has been this ongoing assault on African self-confidence. I was looking at something on BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation television thing, and they were showing starving African people in Sudan. And people are just walking skeletons. And they're all lined up to get charity baskets or rice that's sent to them after it's been stolen from Africa and other places and processed, and now it's coming back to them. And it's just a horrible sight that the world has come to know and accept as normal. Someone mentioned the people dying on these boats trying to cross the Mediterranean, surely chasing their own resources, even though they've been changed, but not just chasing the resources, but running from the disaster that has been created in Africa by white power for hundreds of years. This is the reality that we have to deal with, that they're running from this, these conditions being created, and people are demoralized often and brutalized. And there's no way to romanticize what happens in our communities to poor people, to oppressed African people who have lost identity, culture, all kinds of assault being made, not lost the culture being appropriated, stolen every day before our eyes, and people becoming rich as a consequence of it, but denouncing black people at the same time. The sense of self-confidence. Here, Africa, who brought civilization to the planet Earth, Africans are being convinced that without Tarzan or other ridiculous relationships that we have with white power or white people, we'd be nothing. Africans on the continent of Africa who are often amazed when they hear me sing the praises of Africa, because they want to get the first thing they can to leave Africa and the poverty and the oppression. There's an incredible brutality that's more than just people being shot down by the police. It's an assault on the very soul of a nation that in many instances does not even recognize the fact that it's a nation. Because the ones who have power usually have the power to define the world as well. And I got taught the same history that you got taught. And the history that taught you how wonderful America was taught me how wonderful America was. The history that teaches white people how wonderful America is teaches the indigenous people in the concentration camps that they call reservations how wonderful America is. But something has changed, and it is important that it's changed. Because the crisis of imperialism, because the people are fighting back, and nothing that white power says now seems to make any sense. Otherwise, you could not explain Donald Trump. Right. And so this is an extremely important opportunity that we have to assault the ideological remnants of colonial capitalist imperialism. It is tattered now. And Comrade Penny was talking about books and things like that are being written. And what they've done is the thing that any good propagandist or lie has to do. When it becomes obvious to the people that something profound has changed and they can identify different aspects of it, then what you do is grab it yourself and define it for them. That's what Obama did when he said stuff like change, change, change. He said that because it was happening whether he said it or not. People around the world were fighting out, so he grabs it, change, and defines it in a way that's supposed to support imperialism. And you see all these books being written that have to recognize that it was black people and the sale of black people and the labor of black people that created capitalism. So they write about that, but they can't take you anywhere with that. It's like Tim Wise writ large, who can ride around and tell you all the horrible things that white people did, but they don't go any place except the Tim Wise in his pocket, his bank account, right? So now we're at a different place. And I'm extremely excited to see you here because of this place we are. And I think you represent this place that we are. And I think this meeting also represents, it must be a terrible thing to Trump and Clinton and the rest of them. And I mentioned Trump because I don't have any special bone to pick with Trump. I really don't. I mean, my bone picking started a long time ago. and it, you know, and I mentioned the border question because, you know, Trump made a big thing about the wall, but Obama didn't make a big thing about the wall. He just kicked out more Mexicans than any president has ever done. You understand? But the border that is under assault now is the one that has surrounded white people. That's what we're doing. That's the one surrounded white people and has made it difficult, if not impossible, for you to join the rest of humanity with the lies that have been created from this relationship, this economic relationship, this parasitic relationship that white people, white power has experienced with the rest of us for a long period of time. And it's under assault. And you have to, you're just a real breath of fresh air. You're really a breath of fresh air. I mean, if I didn't know yesterday that we were winning, today seeing you lets me know we are winning. This is a profoundly important meeting, and your presence here is extremely important. So I would like to just share, where am I? Where am I? I don't know. I would like to just share something with you because what I think is really important for me to state is that I am a revolutionary, and I have been for a very, very long time. And probably what dissatisfies me more than anything else is I have to keep coming back to get people, to try to bring people to revolutionary conclusions. And, but I am a revolutionary, and I have a profound responsibility to make this revolution, and so do you. Because the reparations movement is not something that's just for African people. Because the destruction of colonial capitalism is to liberate the world. Because the fundamental contradiction, there are all kinds of contradictions in society. You know that. People in this room have had to deal with contradictions. I've heard some of them laid out. Contradictions affecting men, women, and relationships between men and women, transgender contradictions, and how people are treated as throwaways, flotsam, contradictions having to do with homosexuality. All of these contradictions are just there. And so in everything, you will find contradictions. But what you will also find is that there's a main contradiction without which none of the others could exist, or certainly in their same form. And that's the thing that we've identified. The main contradiction in the whole world is the contradiction between oppressed and oppressor nations. The main contradiction on the planet Earth is that contradiction. That's the contradiction that gives the ability of all the other contradictions to exist. That's the contradiction of parasitic capitalism. Because capitalism was born through slavery and colonialism and taking resources from everybody else on the planet Earth to feed a handful of people, not just the 1%. 1% gets the cream of the crop, but a whole bunch of other folk benefit from that too, usually called European, white people, Americans, etc. And so you have this main contradiction. And once you recognize that, you understand that within the oppressed nation, in the Black community, in the African community, in the African nation, there are contradictions. There are contradictions between men and women. There are contradictions with homosexuals and heterosexuals. There are contradictions that abound in the African community. And there are also contradictions in the oppressor nation, between men and women, between workers and bosses, heterosexuals and homosexuals and what have you. But neither of these contradictions could exist without the existence of the main contradiction between oppressed and oppressor nations, because this is the contradiction that gave birth to all of them. And so the thing is that we have many people call themselves communists and socialists, but they won't fight against the main contradiction. So they find themselves fighting on the pedestal, if you will, of the oppression of other people to get rights. So gays will get rights, maintaining the same relationships, and the so-called disabled will get your rights. You can have easy on and off ramps and stuff like that, but that's not going to help the colonized who has the same station in terms of disabilities and what have you. It's not going to help a damn bit. The colonized can be more effectively and efficiently colonized, but it doesn't change the relationship. So we want to go for the whole thing. Because if you genuinely want to destroy capitalism, then you want to destroy the pedestal upon which it rests. That's the fundamental contradiction. That's the reason we're having this discussion, why you are so important. That's why you are so important. And I know that this comes again at cost, emotional cost to a lot of people, but a lot of young people don't have any stakes in that old time stuff. Don't have any stakes in it. And growing numbers of people who are not so young have concluded that as well. I'm a revolutionary. My objective is to defeat colonial capitalism, because we can't be free other than that. My objective is to destroy colonialism, to fight for Black power, and to do it by any means necessary. And I just wanted to share this from the political report to the January plenary of the African People's Socialist Party. I'm not going to read long, but I just wanted to share a couple of things with you. And because we're entering into a really important groundbreaking work of the party. I like the notion that this is the city of resistance, because the Solidarity Movement was born here, the party was born here. These new trajectories that we take on from era to era, from period to period, you know, have their genesis here. And this moment that we're involved in now, that I think is a critically important moment also. And it says, revolutionary violence is necessary for our freedom. That's the title on this brief portion of the political report. And the reason it's the title is because this was something that was written for African people, wasn't written for white people, for the party and for Africans who engaged in the liberation struggle in some way or another. Because there has been, you know, Obama, one of the factors of Obama was they created the noble Negro, sort of like Mandela, the noble Negro, who is not upset about anything. He's very cool. you can do what you want to do, and you know, never upset, and you know, sold a bunch of garbage, and by example, the rest of us were savage and just crude and etc. And the whole issue of violence has been turned into this horrible abstraction, even as Obama was signing on assassination orders on a regular basis, sending drones to kill people and bombing people. And we just mentioned all these people just murdered in Mosul the other day. And now the Defense Department is going to investigate to see whether we really did it or not, even though we know we dropped this many bombs and et cetera, but we got to find out if we really respond. But there's a good possibility, I'm learning, that the problem is that ISIL is now getting people to live in these houses, which is more than I can say they're doing in most of the cities in this country, right? So ISIL is getting people to live in these houses with the hopes that they will be bombed so they can be good propaganda. So it's ISIS who's killing the people using, it's like this concept they have by murder, by suicide by cop, you know, so this is the thing that they're putting forward. So this whole notion of violence is horrible, that the US government and ruling elites and some of our liberals also promote. And it says, our pursuit of genuine freedom, which can only come about through the total liberation and unification of every square inch of Africa and African people worldwide, the African nation, can only be realized through revolution. By this, we mean that the colonialist capitalist state must be overthrown and the blight of the capitalist system eradicated from the face of the earth. History has proven that it is totally impossible to cajole the oppressor into turning power over to the dispossessed laboring masses upon which his system and future relies. Nor will the colonial capitalist state willingly surrender its authority as protector of the capitalist system through elections that it established and administers for the resolution of generally nonviolent struggle between competing sectors of the capitalist class for control of the system. There will be no exception for African people in the pursuit of power over our lives. We will have to fight for it. It is not simply a struggle with misguided people who are afflicted with an irrational hatred or fear of African people. Massive fortunes and a parasitic way of life purchased through bloody conquest depend on this current arrangement, this status quo, for their success and survival. It will, in the final analysis, take the force of arms to overcome the armed forces of the colonial capitalist state. It is the vicious armed forces of colonial white power that enables the ongoing domination of African people. All the petty bourgeois nonsense about a Willie Lynch syndrome is exposed in face of the concrete reality of the armed to the teeth colonial state. Revolutionary armed struggle against colonialism and capitalism is the only thing that has ever brought any real semblance of liberation to oppressed peoples anywhere on earth, and there will be no exception for Africans. There is no correct religion, culture, or secret documents hidden from our access that once discovered can free us. Africans will have to assume full responsibility for our liberation by recognizing that revolution is the only solution, and that we're going to have to pursue revolution through the purifying, cleansing, exuberant process of organized, politically informed, unrelenting, revolutionary violence. Now that was one portion of that, and that's true. And nobody who doesn't understand that should be walking around wearing Che Guevara t-shirts, right? Then we say, the next short piece here, and it is brief. This is not to say that we will not use other forms of struggle in the process of achieving liberation. We will. We will not desert the electoral path altogether. Whenever possible and necessary, we will take advantage of the democratic space available to our revolution. This is earned space. Everywhere it exists, It was not given to us. It was a result of bloody, life-threatening anti-colonial mass mobilizations from Kenya to Ghana, from Congo to South Africa, all the way to Mississippi, USA. The bourgeois electoral process was created as an institution for nonviolent struggle between contending sectors of the ruling class for control of the state to their profit-making advantage. If that was never understood before, this whole thing with Trump makes it clear. You see this whole battle over the state. You know what the state is, don't you? The state is that organized coercion that protects and advances the status quo. The state, that's the police, that's the army, that's the military, that's the prison system, that's the court system, that's the CIA, that's the FBI, all of those, that's the state. And you see that this contest that just happened with Trump, who violated every rule regarding how to participate in the electoral process, violated every rule, and then ran against the system itself. And by some fluke, as far as the bourgeoisie was concerned, won the election because it's rigged. He was right, it's rigged. The bourgeoisie has set this thing up so that the outcome, whether it's the Democrat or Republican, is guaranteed. Capitalism is going to be secure, and the path that has been promoted by those who control the electoral process will be ongoing. That's like, anybody here ever hear of a man named Don King? He's a boxing promoter, right? Or he was. And he would promote fights, and he would have an interest in both fighters. No matter what corner you came out, you were fighting for Don King. No matter whether you won or you lost, Don King won. And that's what the system is set up to do. But Trump went around it. He went over it. He smashed it. He fought through it and then ran his own campaign. He didn't get vetted. None of the questions that were supposed to be asked and answered got asked and answered with Trump. Trump was too busy talking about little Mario, or I forgot what he called Bush, you know. He didn't even play the game right. So none of it went the way it was supposed to go. But he picked up all those white people who were tired of Hillary, tired of Bush and the entire capitalist establishment as it manifests itself in the world. So, but you see what's happened. He got in. He got in against the Bushes. He got in against all those other sectors of the bourgeoisie who had planned how the thing should go. And now he has some control of the state apparatus. The CIA, he doesn't like how most of it is working. And so because elements from the other sectors of the bourgeoisie still have influence of the state. They can influence. That's how the FBI came out at the last minute and destroyed Hillary Clinton, the struggle over who's going to control the state. This is what they're fighting about, to their own profit-making advantage. This is what the whole thing about Russia is about. Because there's a sector of the bourgeoisie that is concerned about the contention that they have with Russia. Now, Russia is a quote-unquote adversary. How that happens? What is an adversary? I mean, is there war? I mean, what is going on here? But they want this relationship with Russia. The bourgeoisie does. Because if Russia is successful, then it can undermine every relationship they've got throughout Europe. If Russia is successful, and Trump goes along with the Russian thing, then the relationship they got with Germany and other powers, they would immediately get a relationship with Russia. What does that mean for the entire arrangement internationally that holds this entire thing together? So the state, this is what these elections are about. It's a nonviolent struggle for control of the state. And it was created for that purpose. A lot has changed since its creation, though. And we should say something about that, too, because that has implications depending on how we can intervene in it. What has changed since its creation? Anybody? Say it again. Women can vote, right? 1965, black people could vote, right? So there are some changes that's been made since that time, through which certain kinds of advancements might be possible. What has happened, though, they've set up a particular kind of setup. They've created a setup there within which women and black people have generally functioned to try to make our way. And of course, we can't make our way because Don King is running the show. Capitalism always wins. They say, oh, here's Chris Cuomo, the CIA agent on there, who talks about, oh, who's gonna win? Oh, drama, 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 because nobody's paying attention to elections anymore until this one. So we don't know who's gonna win. Yes, you did. You know who's gonna win. Capitalism is gonna win. Capitalism is gonna win. Colonialism is gonna win. So we say, it was not designed to overthrow the system, that is the bourgeois electoral process. It is one of the methods employed to protect the system by providing the means for competing capitalists to fight it out without threatening the stability or existence of the system itself. Because it was established to address the interests of the ruling class, organized independent revolutionary workers can assess the electoral process and make use of this legitimate expression of political activity to take our process before masses of the people normally beyond our reach. Because we don't usually participate in the electoral process. It's been so contaminated, we didn't want to put our foot in this nasty pool. But now we're plumbers. We're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix some things about it. We can't fix this system, but it was not created for the working class. It was not even created for women, right? So now we can use their process to get to people who we couldn't get to before. As many people think about it. Comrade Jesse and Akile can tell you. Overnight, almost. We contact more people know or heard of reparations than all the flyering that we've done and all the conferences that we've done overnight. We announced our candidates' unity through reparations. It's in the newspapers now. It's in the bourgeois newspapers now. So it opens up another door for us, depending on how we fight it. It also denies the African neo-colonial petty bourgeoisie forces a monopoly in this generally sanitized political arena. We should use this electoral institution when possible and tactically appropriate, not as a revolutionary solution, but as a platform to achieve a revolutionary solution. Not as a revolutionary solution, but as a platform to achieve a revolutionary solution. Our party has done this in the past, and we should prepare to do it again. This is before we decided that we had two candidates running in this election. That was January. What month is this? This is just, oh, wow, things do move. When we have utilized the electoral process in the past, it has been as an afterthought, something decided on at the moment because of special prevailing circumstances. Now, comrades, we must add the electoral process to our arsenal of weapons to advance the revolution. We must become experts at using the electoral process to advance our revolutionary objectives. Our revolution must concern itself with the capture of quantifiable, ideological, political, and organizational territory. Our movement, our revolution must concern itself with the capture of quantifiable, ideological, political, and organizational territory. We want the turf now. Even the most apolitical gang in the world understands that you gotta control territory. And certainly colonial and subject people have to have territory. We gotta control territory. We gotta take it away from the Democratic Party, from the Republican Party, from the police departments, from all those other sycophants who follow their leadership. This is something that even the most politically unsophisticated street organization, a gang, understands better than most revolutionary pretenders. We must control turf, deciding who can penetrate our perimeter, what they can do, and when and how they may do it. The electoral process can provide us with one of the assortments of methods we use to claim turf. It can also allow us to capture the loyalty and political participation from a sector of the colonized African community for whom electoral politics has been the entry into political life and who has been denied other forms of political struggle for more than 2 generations. The electoral process can also provide us the vehicle for allowing those Africans for whom it is necessary the ability to learn from the experience, that the colonialist capitalist ruling classes unwillingly to peacefully relinquish power to the oppressed. It is unwilling to peacefully relinquish power to the oppressed. We must begin the process by grooming hardcore, highly committed, ideologically sound revolutionaries from within our ranks to participate in the elections while also providing ideological and political influence over popular masses from within the colony who may involve themselves in elections. Our party's mass work has already influenced the development of a revolutionary national democratic program that can inform most electoral work, whether by our party, movement, or the national democratic sector of the population at large. This can be part of our overall ongoing fight to undermine the influence of colonial and neo-colonial power through acquiring dual power on every front. Strategic utilization of the electoral process can win support for our anti-colonial economic development. It can undermine the authority of the ruling class when their representatives are faced with the impossible task of publicly defending colonial authority from the ideological and political assaults delivered by our party, movement, and the anti-colonial representatives of the people at large. Our party must move to institutionalize a committee of cadre dedicated to electoral work on an ongoing basis. This committee will keep the ruling class and state on the back foot precisely because the electoral system was created for servants of colonial capitalism and not be prepared for non-opportunist, anti-colonial revolutionary for African working class competition in its own arena. And I just want to say this, comrades, this election that we're involved in, I believe has historical significance. This is the first time anything like this has ever happened. I mean, we've had black people run for office and white quote-unquote leftists run for office, but we've never had this kind of thing where we're seeing the genuine response to the contradictions that exist in this country between Africans and North Americans is reparations, and we're going to take this on. And to actually go out and win the white population to a higher level of unity, and not en masse. This is not our regular, meetings. I mean, we feel pretty good, 35, 40 people come to a meeting, but now we have access to thousands of people. And we have, and the thing that helps us is because the electoral process is recognized by the majority of the people as the means by which you pursue power. So you're not some weird person or weird force coming at them. You're using a system that they're accustomed to and actually appreciate when it, quote unquote, speaks to their interests. And this is the thing that we're going to do with this campaign. And this is how what used to be just the weirdos in the solidarity movement now it becomes something shall become an expression of political and ideological support from the general people here. We had a situation where we required everybody or too many people to come to us in a certain way. Now what we are doing is transforming this city into Uhuru. That's what we're doing. We're transforming the city into Uhuru. So I want to welcome you again and thank you so much for being here. And a lot of comrades I've known for a long time, and my appreciation for you obviously has gone undimmed or tarnished, anything like that. And I'm really excited to meet so many of you new young comrades. I'm thrilled, in fact. I'm thrilled. Jesse is unaccustomed to talk about happiness, but I am truly thrilled to see you. I really believe that you represent a new future, or the future I really believe that. I really believe that we are going to penetrate the system. I think that what we are going to do is provide the answers that people want. I really believe people want. People want to know how to end this thing that happens between black people and white people. And I think people want to know how to rectify this relationship. And we're going to do it. And we're not going to cripple. We're not going to be wishy-washy about it. We're going to be bold in our assertions, and we're going to take this out throughout the world. Every place we are, we're going to have to build support for these campaigns, and we got to let the world know these campaigns are here. So I wanted to say that, and I want to just express my appreciation to all of you and the real talent and this great video that you just did, this great song that you just heard, and these political presentations, which were magnificent. I know there's much more that happened over the next day or so, and white solidarity with what? Black power. Uhuru.
All right, another round of applause for Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Thank you, Chairman. And we do want to now open it up for discussion, provided nothing has changed. I would like to initially call up Chairwoman Penny Hess to help moderate this discussion, and of course invite Chairman Omali Yeshitela, if you would like to participate in the question and answer. Please do line up if you have questions, if you're able to line up, if we have a microphone here, Hallie, there, if you have questions, and I'll turn it over to... we have
a few minutes, okay.
Okay, all right. So
Uhuru, just amazing presentation from Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru, really powerful. So we just have a few minutes. We may have time later on the agenda. I'm not sure for more discussion. I hope so. But I want to see if there's anybody here that would have a comment or a discussion question. Please go to the microphone. No? Everybody's clear? Chairman?
I just want to say that throughout my history and what Comrade Jesse and Akile are going to be confronted with during this electoral process that we're involved in, reasonable people have demanded that my position should be moderated. You have to moderate your position, you understand? And because you can't win, you know, talking about reparations, you can't win like this. That you must moderate your position. And usually they say something like, "Well, I understand it. Others won't ever be able to unite with you." And our stance is no. What you have to do is win people to change their position so that they can become revolutionaries on the side of the revolution. And that's our stance. And that's what we have to take out from here. That they're not going to make moderates out of us. You understand that? And the people don't want moderates. They've already indicated that, even using the electoral process. Even if you just go by what happened in this election, people are not looking for moderation, right? So, but that's usually what's asked of us. And we've even had recent examples of somebody wanting us to be moderate in our viewpoints, et cetera. Yeah.
Uhuru Chairman, I'm Hallie. I just want to appreciate everything you've laid out today just now, and also understanding that how historic it really truly is that all of us white people are here and that you're laying out the future for us, because I know that through the history of the almost 50 years of the party, there was a time when the idea of a solidarity committee was, you had to get rid of it because it just wasn't working. It seemed impossible that white people could actually take a principled stance in solidarity, and just that everyone in the room knows the tremendous struggle that the chairman and the whole party has had to make this possible. Now we're in this time where you can present in front of a room of white people ready and willing and eager to overturn the system of oppression. I'm eager to overturn it with you under your leadership. And I just want to appreciate so much that you created this movement at all for us to be part of and for being here today. So, Uhuru.
This is Hallie the anarchist slayer. Anarchist slayer, but I always knew it. It's just the white people didn't know it. That was the struggle I was always having. And that was the big struggle. The white people didn't know that you could come over. You understood? Yes, comrade. Yeah. Uhuru.
I have a very simple question. For those of us that would happily support the two candidates that are running, but unfortunately we live in the wrong place to vote for you, what is the best way we can support those two people?
I think the candidates and the campaign is going to say something about this, but I shall offer anyway a slight suggestion. I think that we need to organize wherever we can committees and support of these candidacies. And I think we have a responsibility to try to put out the word to everybody, know that this incredible thing is happening in St. Petersburg, Florida. And then I think that part of what these committees need to do, in addition to spreading the word, is raise money. Because we're going up against big money. Like the candidate Jesse is going up against has already raised something like $260,000. And so we're going up against big money and what have you, and we're not going to be able to put that kind of money into it. But if we do this on a national and international level, and I think it's really important, because this campaign must not be isolated. It must be something that happens in full view of the entire world so that people and others can be convinced that this is the right way to go. And that's what's going to help us bust up even this whole ossified notion that might be in the heads of white people in particular, that you can't take this position or that position when they know that it's happening in this little backwater. It's called paradise by white people, by the way. City of St. Petersburg, Florida, that everybody knows is happening. I think that's part of what we can do. Uhuru. Yeah.
Uhuru, I'm Casey.
Casey.
I know that this will probably be discussed more in depth in the workshop on the campaigns that we talked about, these historic campaigns with Jesse for mayor on a platform of unity for reparations, unity through reparations, and Akile for the District 6 councilwoman on a platform of radical solutions for radical times.
Right.
Do you see the future, the short-term future of a Uhuru Solidarity movement being, you know, our members running for mayor and other electoral positions in all the cities where we exist?
I think we're going to end up doing that. I think everywhere they're going to have to fight us everywhere. I mean, see, they, you know, fight us everywhere. You know, they've created these little sacred places where, you know, only they can inhabit those places. They're going to have to fight us everywhere, not just somebody running up and snatching something from Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders and whatever. Hell, we're going to be on there with them, and we're going to be fighting them toe for toe in many of these, many of the arenas there. So yeah, I anticipate doing that.
Uhuru.
I anticipate doing that. Uhuru. The thing that makes this one good, though, let me just say that the thing that makes this one good, this city, demographically, it doesn't support what it is that we're trying to do ordinarily. Because what? The African population here is shimmering, what? Something like 23% of the population here. So this is not the ideal place to take this on. But what helps this, though, is that we have both Jesse and Akile. That's the thing that helps it. They give that combination. And part of the reason it helps it is because we don't create the image or recreate the image of the paternalistic white guy who's going to be bringing some reparations, bringing the groceries, going to be doing like in Sudan, bringing the bags of rice, you understand? In fact, Akile is the lead person, though she's running for city council, because this revolves around the whole question of Black power and reparations. And so that's one of the help. And I'm mentioning that so when we talk about running on reparations, things like that, it's something that we have to really plan it out so that you won't even create a hostile Black community who's saying, who the hell is she that she's going to, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, but I do think we're going to be doing this everywhere. Everywhere. Uhuru.
Any other questions, comments? All right, comrades. Oh, one more person here.
Excuse me for my ugly English. It's not really good.
Thank you. But I'm very impressed always about this group, and isn't totally in my life. And I want to bring salute from Chile, from a socialist candidate. I brought to him as a socialist candidate that went in the last running, and it's possible he is running again in Chile. And I bring Bernie Spears and books, and we were talking about colonialism, and he gave to me very interesting books in Spanish. I didn't have still, but I want to find it to share. And I think it's very important that in my country, people knows about this party, because the organization here, I can imagine that it's not in another place, that because, for example, there the experience is people don't know how to organize, and I think we can learn a lot about what you are doing here and the experience you have, and I want to be part, of course.
Uhuru. Uhuru. I want to say that a movement has had a very close relationship in the past with the Chilean Revolution. And I think that Chile helps to punctuate exactly what we're talking about in terms of U.S. violence. U.S. imperialism as a strategic enemy of the people on the planet Earth. And the people in Chile, under Allende, Salvador Allende, a socialist actually won the election. And they made the mistake of thinking that was it. Because they thought that they could win that election and then use the same state apparatus to govern with. And that state apparatus was one that was controlled essentially by the United States, who helped to murder Pinochet. And, but not just that, I'm sorry, Allende, Pinochet, who helped to murder Allende, but not just that. Thousands of revolutionaries from throughout South America went to Chile after that election. Thousands of them were rounded up in soccer stadiums and executed. When a compañera here talks about having to learn how to organize, is having to rebuild after the murder, the assassination of so many organizers, so many revolutionaries. We talked about Vietnam and how the US government was it the Phoenix program, has killed thousands of people who were leaders and organizers and et cetera. But similarly in Chile, but not just in Chile, but revolutionaries from throughout South America went into Chile and were rounded up and murdered in those soccer camps. So it is a part of the same revolutionary project, because we've always said that we are African revolutionaries, but we are also revolutionaries of the Americas. And so I appreciate your being here and your comments. And I love, often there were comrades from Chile when we were out in the West Coast who were at our meetings and what have you. And I just want to salute you, Uhuru.
I just want to say that the African People's Socialist Party, yes, had deep relationship with the comrades struggling in Chile, also Argentina, also Nicaragua, the FSLN, El Salvador, the FMLN. All of these forces were at all the events. Whenever the chairman spoke, whenever there was a public event, also the Palestinian people, the indigenous people, the party has had the Irish, all of the people on the planet Earth that are struggling, the party has embraced them, and often the only ones are the first ones inside the borders of the United States.
What makes that important is that in this country in particular, there's such an association with whiteness in the US that it's difficult for white people to understand solidarity. Like, we had never met, as we knew it, someone from Nicaragua when the Nicaraguan revolution heated up. But we turned all the resources at our command over to the Nicaraguan revolution. We held the first public mass meeting in the California Bay Area in solidarity with the Nicaraguan revolution. We were there for the Palestinians, and we were there for the Iranians during the time when the Shah was murdering people, and we've been there for all these other revolutionary projects. And white people have been there in many instances with El Salvador for all those, but they can't be here for Africans because this connection between whiteness and America. To be against the US, especially coming from an African, is to be against white people. Do you see? And so this has been really complicated, one of the complicating factors in the struggle that we're involved in, and to get white people to turn away from that damn whiteness, that white stuff, which is nasty. You know, and to join with the rest of humanity, etc. That's what national suicide ultimately is all about, you know. We're killing the whiteness in you.
Uhuru, thank you so much. Another round of applause for Chairman Omali Yeshitela. All right. I appreciate everyone's patience. We're going to be lining up for lunch momentarily, but first I think we want to do a photograph. Am I right? Are we still doing the photograph? Okay, so yeah, if everyone could line up here in two phalanxes, right? Sort of a V shape.
A row of chairs, and we can all, you know, by height.
Right, and we want to try to avoid blocking each other's faces with the fists, so we keep it kind of chest level.
Yeah. Come on up.